Welcome back to Musicians Edition. Today we're going to be back in the snare drum portion of our Essential Elements book, and we're going to look at number 126. In number 126 we have a nice little flam pattern here, right? And it happens several different times. If you look at beat 1 of measure 1, you see we have that right, left, right flam, left. And if you glance ahead, you see we also have that pattern in measure 2. We have it again in measure 3. We have it again in measure 5, except it's on beat 3 and 4 instead of 1 and 2. We have it again in measure 6 on beat 3 and 4, right? So when you come across a piece and you find a pattern like this that repeats over and over and over, it's a really good idea to practice just that pattern a few times. And then you've already knocked out a good portion of the entire piece just by practicing that one little passage by itself. Okay, so let's play that a few times and get nice and comfortable with it, and then we can start to put it into context in the piece. Right, so the sticking is gonna go just like it's written in your book, right, left, and then a right flam, and then left, just like this. Okay, and one thing we're gonna be really careful to do is to not play the flam note louder than the other eighth notes, right? We want it to be the exact same volume and just a different sound quality from the regular eighth notes, right? Let's try it once with the snares on so we can kind of hear a little more clearly what that flam sounds like. Okay? Now, one other thing you want to try to do is make sure that the grace note of your flam stays really low, really close to the head of the drum, right? Nice and close to the surface, right? And the way that we do that is by, after we play our first left hand eighth note on the and of 1, we're going to keep our stick down nice and low. That way we're in position for the flam, right? So if I play the first 2 notes, I'm going to lift with my right hand, leave my left hand down. And you see how that puts me in position to play that flam. Right? Lift with the right, leave the left down. And then I'm ready to play, right? So it's all, keeping that grace note nice and low is all about prepping the beat before leaving that stick down, keeping it ready to play the flam after it, right? So let's play this a couple more times, really focusing on keeping that grace note down, keeping the eighth notes nice and even, especially the flam note, okay? Ready and go, and. Again, ready and go, and. Okay, now that we've done that, we can start to put this together, right? So we see in measure 1, we have 1 and flam and 3 and a 4 E and. Okay, and we're going to play that with the written sticking, right, left, right, left, right, left. So let's try all of measure 1. Ready, and go, and. Okay. Now, let's look at measure 2. It's the same at the beginning, 1 and flam and then 3 E and 4 and up. And again, we're going to use that written sticking there, right, left, right, left. Okay? So here's measure 2. Ready, and go, and. Okay, and one more time of measure 2. Ready, go. Okay? Now, let's put measure 1 and 2 together, and then I'll show you. We're gonna skip around just a little bit in this piece and it'll be fun. But before we do that, let's put measure 1 and measure 2 together back to back, okay? So here's from the beginning, first 2 bars. Ready, and go, and. Okay? Now, let's leave measure 3 and 4 alone for now, and we're gonna jump down to measure 5. And this is an example of a way I really like to practice music where we work on it out of order, right? We don't want to necessarily always start from the beginning and go to the end, right? Sometimes the path we take to work out a piece of music is not straight ahead, right? Sometimes we need to wind around a little bit in order to practice really efficiently, right? So what we're going to do is look at measure 5, and what you'll see is beat 1 and beat 2 of measure 5 is the same rhythm and same sticking as beats 3 and 4 of measure 2, right? You see that connection there? So measure 5 is 1E and 2 and a, right? Measure 2 is 3E and 4 and a, right? And then you see the first half of measure 2 is the same thing as the second half of measure 5, right? So really, all we're doing from measure 2 to measure 5 is taking the first half, the second half of the measure, and just flipping it around, right? So it's the exact same material, just in a different order, right? So that's why we wanted to jump to this part and practice it now while these same patterns are fresh on our minds, right? So let's try measure 5. 1E and 2 and a 3 and flam and. Ready and go and. Okay? And if we got measure 2 nice and comfortable for you, then that was probably pretty simple, pretty easy to play, right? If it wasn't, you can give it some more repetitions until it feels really good.
This lesson is brought to you by the Musician's Edition practice book. Make goals and keep track of progress throughout the whole year. When you're done with this video lesson, don't forget to mark this practice time in your Musician's Edition practice book. Now back to the video.
Now let's look at measure 6, and you'll notice a connection here between measure 6 and measure 1, right? We did the same process here, where beats 1 and 2 and beats 3 and 4 are the same as measure 1. They're just rearranged in the opposite order, right? So for measure 6, we have 1 and a 2E and 3 and flam and. Okay, so let's try that. Ready and go and. Okay, and again. Ready and go and. Okay, so hopefully by this point you feel pretty good about measure 5 and measure 6, right? Especially since in working out measure 1 and measure 2, we practiced all the components of measure 5 and 6 as well, right? So let's try measure 5 plus measure 6. Here we go. Ready and go and. All right, let's do that one more time. Ready and go and. And now that we've done those 4 measures, right, 1, 2, 5, and 6, we're halfway through the piece, right? So let's keep working here, and you'll notice we're gonna continue to kind of weave our way through this piece and find different spots that we can work on that are related to each other, right? So let's take a peek at measure 4 and measure 8, right? And you'll notice beats 3 and 4 of each of these measures is exactly the same. 3 and a 4, right, left, left. Okay, so once we have that, then we have the second half of both of those measures, right? You'll see the first half of measure 4, 1E and a 2 and. First half of measure 8, 1 and 2E and a, right? And you'll see again, that's just beat 1 and beat 2, and then beat 1 and beat 2 again, but in the opposite order, right? So the 8th notes come first in measure 8, the 16th notes come first in measure 4, right? So let's try all of measure 4. 1E and a 2 and 3 and a 4. Ready and go and. Okay? And then let's try all of measure 8. Ready and go and. The only thing left is measure 3 and measure 7, right? Now, unfortunately, these 2 measures aren't really related to each other in any way, and other than the fact that in measure 3 we have some previous material with that right, left, flam, left pattern that we worked on at the very beginning of this video, right? So let's do measure 3 first. Right, left, flam, left, 3E and a 4 and. Let's try it. Ready and go and. Okay, one more time. Ready and go and. All right. And then let's try measure 7. 1 and 2E and a 3E and 4. Ready and go and. All right. Now in measure 7, we got to be a little bit careful going from beat 2 into beat 3, right? Sometimes there's a tendency with rhythms like this to want to hesitate a little bit when we go from the end of beat 2 to the beginning of beat 3, right? But you notice there's 16th notes, and the 16th notes just keep on chugging, right? And so we want to just keep our hands moving all the way through beat 2, 2E and keep them moving, 3E and 4, right? 2E and 3E and. Let's try just those 2 beats a couple of times. 2E and 3E and. Here we go. Ready and go and. One more time. Ready and go and. All right, now let's play the whole measure one more time. Ready and go and. All right, now let's start working into larger chunks of music, right? Remember when we take a piece apart, we kind of practice each individual spots, and then we start working our way out and putting larger chunks together until finally we get the whole piece in its entirety, okay? And that process applies to really every piece in this book and then every piece that you play afterwards. Okay, so here we go. From measure 5, let's play all of the second line of the piece. So we'll play half of the piece all together here, okay? Starting at measure 5. Ready and go and. All right, and give that enough repetitions that it feels really, really comfortable. And then let's play the first half of the piece, measure 1 through 4. And we'll do the same thing there. We'll give it as many repetitions as it takes for those 4 bars to feel really comfortable. Here we go. 2 and 3 and go and. Okay, and now once that feels good, 5 through 8 feels really good, maybe we're ready to play the whole piece now, right? Or maybe not, right? Sometimes we kind of have to bridge the gap a little bit when we're putting 2 large chunks together, right? And the way we can bridge those 2 large chunks together is by practicing the end of the first chunk into the beginning of the second chunk. That way when we put the whole thing together, we'll already be used to making that transition there, right? So for this piece, that kind of bridge that I was talking about happens from measure 4 into measure 5, right? So a way we could practice bridging the gap there is play measure 4 followed by measure 5, and do that a couple times until it feels really comfortable. Okay, so let's try that. Measure 4 and 5. Ready and go and. Okay, so those 2 bars, give that enough repetitions that it feels really smooth, jumping from the top line to the bottom line. And then once you've kind of gone through all of those different steps that we've done, we're ready to play the whole piece. So let's give it a shot from the very beginning, all the way through. And ready and go and. All right, so that's all of number 126. There's several steps in there to kind of break this piece down, right? But it's always important, especially when you're working through kind of shorter etudes like this, to break it down into its components and really get comfortable with that process of breaking the piece down, building the piece back up. That way, later on in your musical career, when you're dealing with larger pieces of music, you can apply those same techniques and pull it apart and practice the different components, build it back up, bridge the gaps in there, and put the whole thing together successfully. All right? So happy practicing, and I will see you next time.